rather than trying to be the most interesting person, you're simply the most interested. So when you're having that political conversation with someone on the opposite side of the aisle than you, the opposite side of the political spectrum, you can have a wonderful conversation if you just choose to be curious. Just be
Right.
interested. Ask them.
Right.
And they're going to walk away from that thinking, you know what? I know we don't agree, but he heard me out. And I think that's what's not happening in our country is people don't hear each other out. And because of that, we've settled into these camps, and it's really difficult to move forward as a country when we're in these different camps where we're not even listening. Well, we can't control the macro. This is kind of getting back to
Mm.
stoicism. But we can be one element of change. We can be the change we want to see in our own relationships. We can be the interested person, not trying to be the most interesting person. And if we do that, and if enough people do that, I think that's where societal change can really come in.
Welcome to Leading the Way podcast, where you'll learn neuroscience-backed ways to lead more effectively and have more fun at work with what you already have. Hey there, it's Chris, and welcome to Leading the Way. I am absolutely delighted to have another phenomenal guest. Patrick, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Chris, it's wonderful to be here.
I'm so excited. Hey, Patrick, I know about you, you know about you, but everyone listening doesn't. So if you bear with me, I want to let folks know how awesome you are so they can be really excited about our chat coming up. So Patrick Galvin is an accomplished presenter, a TEDx speaker, an author, a coach. He's also the chief galvanizer of the Galvanizing Group, a coaching and online learning company that helps high-performance companies grow bottom-line results through better connections. Patrick educates and motivates while giving people strategies, ideas, tools, and so many other things that galvanize success. He's received enthusiastic testimonials for his keynote presentations, breakout sessions, workshops, and webinars for organizations throughout the US, Canada, Latin America, and Europe, and the 78 micro-learning courses in his company's online business relationship academy have over 1,100 outstanding reviews in Open Sesame, which is a global e-learning platform. Based on the success of his books, and we're going to talk about his newest one here a little bit today and even have a reading, and his business career, Patrick empowers others to embrace relationship-building principles that drive meaningful, lasting impact. Patrick, thanks again for being on the podcast. So excited to delve into this. And I'm just curious, what got you motivated to start in this space? Were you seeing or noticing things? Is it just something you naturally were drawn to, or what pulled you into this space?
Well, actually, I think sometimes the most valuable things we learn in our life come from failures rather than successes. So I'm a pretty typical person in business, and then I went to business school. I came out into the work world with an MBA. I thought I had everything figured out. So went to work for a couple different companies. Then I joined my family's retail furniture business. And because I studied marketing in business school, I was given free reign to chart our future course. And I thought I had it just dialed in. And I was pretty awesome at blowing through money. In my
Sure.
first 6 months in the family business, I spent $200,000 on a traditional marketing spend and didn't see much by way of results, and started
Ouch.
talking to friends in different industries and discovered that my story is pretty common. A lot of money was being spent on marketing that wasn't working. And having conversations with people, I learned that regardless of the business, whether it was a product business, a service business, it was those companies that really focused on building that relationship with their existing client base and cultivating relationships with people who might do business with them. Those were the companies that were successful. And I was not focused on that. I didn't learn that in business school. So that was my aha moment that happened, gosh, going back almost 30 years ago, that
Wow.
woke me up to what really works in business. And fortunately, it's what really works in life too. Relationship building is everything. It is the key to the good life.
100%, 100%. And in this day, as we're recording this, and even throughout this year, there's been a lack of engagement by any measure. And we've seen the Gallup poll that talks about, employee engagement at an all-time low at 30%. Um, what part do you think relationships have in that, not just with our vendors, but internally with our teams?
Oh, it's huge. So big that our Surgeon General in October of 2023 came out with a report called the Loneliness Epidemic. And
Mm.
our Surgeon General, he's in his second go round. So he was Surgeon General under Obama. He's come back under Biden. And what he identified in his first go round was all of these deaths of despair that our country suffers from: suicide, alcoholism, depression, drug abuse, all these things that drive early death. When you look at the cause, the primary cause is disconnection and alienation. So it's not surprising that people are saying they're disengaged at work, but oftentimes they're disengaged at home too. They're feeling just lost and lonely and alienated. And it is a pervasive issue that transcends the workplace.
Right. No, 100%. And it sounds like you've got a formula, ethos, an application of this that moves the dial quite a bit. What sort of high level? Obviously, you want to protect the clients you work with and not share, their dirty secrets, although they're probably common among other companies. But, what sort of changes have you witnessed as you work with folks on this? What are they seeing?
Well, fortunately, now there's an awareness that didn't exist when I was going into business that relationship building is important.
Mm.
So that's a starting point that wasn't there before. But there's a lot of mindset around relationship building that is erroneous. People think that you need to be an extrovert to be a great relationship builder, and there are assignments made within companies to put, the extroverts on the front lines because they're going to sell more or put them into management. But the reality
Mm.
is, everyone can become a great relationship builder. It's a mindset. It's important to realize that it has value. And then it's also important to realize that with a growth mindset, with this awareness that anyone can do it. And by that, I mean an openness to the skill set of relationship building. So what we work on in our coaching groups at the enterprise level is we walk people through developing a relationship building mindset, and then we work on the skill set. And the skill set is challenging these days because you have multi-generations in the workforce. You have people who are good at the real world, other people who are really uncomfortable picking up the phone, would prefer to do everything online. So in our cohorts, we work in a coaching cohort model with 6 to 8 people in a cohort. We work people through different ways to build relationship. And by having cohorts of mixed generations, people oftentimes are speaking about what's working for them. And they have the same company, the same products and services that they offer, the same opportunities and challenges. It's just interesting to see how people tend to play in different sandboxes. So by bringing them together, having a point of view, which we have in our coaching curriculum, in our online courses, and our written curriculum, as a starting point, everyone's sort of reading literally the same books, watching the same courses, but then reacting according to their own experiences. It's a very robust conversation. And that's the power of a cohort versus one-on-one. When you're coaching somebody one-on-one, it's a little bit of an echo chamber. And we love
Yeah.
the fact that we don't have all of the answers. We have a great starting point. And the answers tend to exist within organizations, but they just don't have a chance to interact and talk about this stuff enough.
Well, I love that. And as you're talking, a couple little images popped in my head. I'm always making movies while people are talking, so don't be offended. That's what my little brain does. But one was when you're
That's
talking about
beautiful.
one-on-one. It's brilliant and it has its place. But I'm reminded of my son who plays tennis, and when he's one-on-one being fed balls, right? It's a lot easier when you play a game with multiple people or multiple generations. In this case, the ball's all over the place, just like
Yeah.
relationships all over the place, and it's a very different skill when things aren't just being fed to you. It's easy to have the perfect answer, the perfect form then, but in the game of life or the work, it's quite different.
Yeah,
S-
we have totally abandoned one-on-one coaching. There's value
Yeah.
for it. There are great one-on-one coaches out there, plenty of them. I've actually
Yeah.
benefited from one-on-one coaching. But I think when it comes to the skill set and mindset of relationship building, look in the very word relationship, it just almost screams out, hey, you've got to be in a cohort because you're practicing these skills that we're trying to expose people to in the cohort. You're actually building relationships with people who you don't know, who you've never felt vulnerable with, and it's a great starting point to really opening yourself to the possibility of a greater breadth and depth of connection.
Love it. Love it. And I know you said it's a mindset and a skill set that everyone can learn and practice, but we probably all have undeveloped developed muscles. We can all get better at this. Was that the motivation of putting together your latest book, is to create that ritual for folks to be able to build the skill set?
Yeah, it is important to just sort of take things into bite-sized pieces. So in a cohort, we have that ability to work with people over the course of 10 weeks. We have 9 online sessions. It's all done virtually.
Mm.
So we can do that. This book was really born from a frustration that a lot of times I'm called in to give a keynote on relationship building. And if you keynote a lot, as you can see, I'm enthusiastic about the topic. I love sharing stories and ideas. But the reality is most people revert back to what they were doing almost completely a couple weeks after hearing a speaker. So I
Yeah.
really wanted to figure out, well, how do we capture all of this good that we see happening in our cohorts with individuals? So our newest book, The Daily Connector, is a book that was developed so people could take little bite-sized pieces. It's a page a day. There's 366 ways to galvanize your life with better relationships. A page takes about a minute 45 to read. It has a quote, it's got an idea, a best practice, and then it has an action step. And then there's an accompanying journal so you can actually journal and write things down. And we thought, okay, people could devote 10 minutes a day to relationship building. And if they do that, regardless of their starting point, we know from our coaching experience and cohorts that they will get to a much better space by the end of the year. So it's just bite-sized pieces. Think about it, apply it, and live a slightly different way over the course of a year, and you're going to see some incredible results.
That's amazing. It's amazing. And I know you've got a reading for us. Before we jump into that, it's kind of interesting too. Anyone I know that's put any amount of energy in this work, small, medium, or large, it's not like it gets worse, right? It's everything you're doing, even if it's sloppy and imperfect, it's gonna make it better. And it's so interesting in this space that I've yet to see, and maybe someone listening or someone commenting below has an example that's an outlier, but anyone investing at all in this work and the work you do is going to make things better for things around them. And I don't know that that's true in so many other areas of study, right? You could actually go backwards pretty far,
Yeah.
but that's not the case with this.
Yeah, no, and I was inspired to do the daily format during the pandemic when things seemed completely out of control. I found Ryan Holiday's book, the Daily Stoic,
Yeah.
and I studied Stoicism in college. I had one philosophy class. It was very much over my head. It was very academic, and it was all in like one dose. We got Stoicism in 2 weeks, and then we moved on to the next philosophical thought. It did nothing for me. I read the Daily Stoic, one reading a day regarding Stoicism, something to think about. And by the
Yeah.
end of the year, I had really embraced a philosophy that was a life-changing philosophy. So I think anything that you focus sort of micro attention on and you work on it over the course of time, whether it's in
Yep.
a coaching group, whether it's reading a daily style book, makes an impact. And I agree with you. It certainly is going to cause no harm, and it just really depends on your commitment to it. And it's not a big time commitment. You
Right.
can see incremental improvement without a doubt.
A million percent. And before we jump into your reading, which I'm really excited to hear, and I'm sure the listeners are as well, as an example, is there's some really cool neuroscience, which you're probably aware of. Dr. Jeffrey Karp has done that many frequent starts is actually how we learn better. So you're better off going at it 15 minutes, ticking away for 5, going back at 15. It's just how our brains work. It's how we engage, and being offline, we do a bunch of things and then we come back to the thing going, I have these questions, I want to answer it. And we learn better, we function better. And this builds exactly on that. Is every day you're coming to it instead of I'm going to do 6 hours of relationship, make myself better.
Yeah.
You'll be checked out after about 20 minutes if you're like me. Well intentioned, want to stay there, but your brain isn't just wired for that. But
Yeah,
this,
and sadly, we're being even more rewired to take things in short bursts. And part of that
yeah,
social media and email and text messaging. I mean, we're just used to being communicated to in these small bursts. So as an author, it's a big ask. I'm going to hold up the thickness of my book. Can you see it right here? This is a thick
yeah,
book. Now, if
yeah,
you try to read this all in one setting, how much are you really going to retain? Versus if you take it and do a page and think about it
right.
and say, okay, I can bring this into my day today in this way, that's really where it makes a difference.
Love it. Love it. Well, if you're willing to, Patrick, would love to hear an example day and so people can experience what the book's like.
Yeah, great. Well, what I'm going to do is we're recording this, and I'm going to read it from the day that we're recording. And I've been noted ahead of time. So today's reading, and just to hold it up so you can see the format, every day has a page, and you can start any day. So you don't have to start on January 1st. We've marked out the days if you want to go that route. So for today, which is day 347 of the year, the title of this section is Face the Future. And we always have a quote. So the quote is, change is the law of life. Those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future. John F. Kennedy. And
Nice.
here's the reading. It's true. The fundamentals of relationship building are timeless. But change is inevitable, and technology and evolving social norms will continue to shape how people connect. Your success as a relationship builder lies in knowing when to stick to the basics and when to embrace new methods with open arms.
Mhm.
After all, building relationships is about meeting people where they are, not where you are. If someone important to you prefers to communicate via video call or social media, adapting to those methods shows that you're committed to understanding and connecting with them on their terms. That doesn't mean you can't suggest a face-to-face meeting or send a handwritten note to enrich your interactions. In doing so, you reinforce the value of holding on to things that are proven to work. Bottom line, don't fight change, but don't abandon the tried and true methods of relationship building either. Instead, blend them with new tools to create a richer, more dynamic approach to connecting. When you show flexibility and openness, you set an example for everyone else trying to navigate change. And then we have
Mhm.
a paragraph with an action step. Here's the action step. What new technology or method can you integrate into your relationship building efforts? For example, using a social media platform to organize a real world meetup not only makes it easier to gather people, but also shows that you value face-to-face interactions. The goal is to leverage the convenience of modern tools and ensure your ability to connect and stay connected in meaningful ways.
Nice. Boy,
So
that's great and so timely, right? As we were recording this, we've just gotten through an election year. There's all sorts of world conflict. AI is going faster than ever. Economies all over the place. There's both layoffs and growth. I mean, and then just a holiday season, it can feel overwhelming. We might remember a lost one or just end of the year craziness. I mean, uh, change is here for sure.
yeah, it is here for sure. And I think that a lot of times people think that the shiny new object is the best one. And, thank goodness for what we're doing right now, communicating via Zoom. I'm
Yeah,
looking at you, Chris, and we're in different locations. That's wonderful.
right.
It's an incredible tool. But it doesn't mean, and I think we all found out during the pandemic, it doesn't take the place of a face-to-face meeting. It's a wonderful addendum. It's a way to stay connected. And I think a lot of people think that it's an either or. Either I'm savvy and modern, or I'm really old school and I negate everything. I'm a Luddite. And the answer in our eyes is it's a happy blend. And how do you
Yeah,
blend? And notice how we were focused on it's not about you. You might have a young millennial friend that doesn't want to talk to you, that feels more comfortable communicating by text. Well, go with the flow. Would that person be more text centric? And you might have a grandma, if you send her a text, she probably won't be able to open it. So
right.
it's just really putting yourself in the other's shoes. And I think that's one of the keys to relationship building is it's not about, what you want. So many people think it's about the golden rule, do unto others as you would like to have done unto you. But the reality is it's the platinum rule. And the platinum rule is do unto others as they would like to have done unto them. And when it comes to communication, if they're a texter, text them. If they're a video person,
Yeah.
video them. That's really the success in relationship building is live the platinum rule, not the golden rule.
A million percent. And it's really cool too. Like when you're being empathetic, it's kind of like actively being empathetic with the person and reaching where they're at. You don't have to agree with them either, right? You're acknowledging that's where they're at, and you can still be quote unquote, excuse me, right or whatever else.
Yeah.
But you're meeting where they're at, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's another thing I'm noticing in a lot of relationships is with the red and blue stuff going on. I'm not going to go into politics. I'm just talking about how people can polarize themselves. It's one thing or the other. And that's the easy example to come with, but it's really, if you're red, it's not saying that you're wrong and right. It's acknowledging this is where the person is at and
Yeah.
having
And
that empathy and building that relationship bridge. And it's so simple,
It,
really.
it
I mean,
really is. I mean, I think so many people, and you see it in social media where they're spending all this time trying to be, this amazing person, these great travels and, really popular, the this or the that. And I think there are so many people who think that, the key to being a great relationship builder is to have a high profile, to be really a
mhm,
dynamic, interesting person. And rather than trying to do that, it's a lot simpler and actually a lot easier and a lot more successful if, rather than trying to be the most interesting person, you're simply the most interested. So when you're having that political conversation with someone on the opposite side of the aisle than you, the opposite side of the political spectrum, you can have a wonderful conversation if you just choose to be curious. Just be
Right.
interested, ask them.
Right.
And they're going to walk away from that thinking, you know what? I know we don't agree, but he heard me out. And I think that's what's not happening in our country is people don't hear each other out. And because of that, we've settled into these camps, and it's really difficult to move forward as a country when we're in these different camps where we're not even listening. Well, we can't control the macro. This is kind of getting back
Mm.
to stoicism. But we can be one element of change. We can be the change we want to see in our own relationships. We can be the interested person, not trying to be the most interesting person. And if we do that, and if enough people do that, I think that's where societal change can really come in.
A million percent. And I know you mentioned you started this journey a little bit with marketing, and it's so true there is, as humans will say we want to, maybe this is a bad example, but we want to be healthy and do healthy things. And then our bills show that we went to McDonald's and 7-Eleven. So yes, we value it, but we also have some of these behaviors here.
Yeah.
And maybe we want to change those behaviors. Maybe that's why that's not a good example, but it's really relating to the person and not just data. I'm a big data person and data insights are important, but having that relationship with that
Yeah.
just makes it stronger because you get the persona. You've actually listened to the customer phone call. You're not just looking at the data. You've related to them, and that's so rare now, right? There's a lot of assumption that this is where people are at, or their buying behavior is who they are, versus really connecting.
Yeah.
And it
And
doesn't
it's
take a ton of energy either.
no, no, and so much is based on misconception because we're all listening to our own echo chambers. We listen to the podcasts that agree with us. We watch the news sources or read the news sources that agree with us. So we think our narrative is the narrative. And the
Right,
reality is life is nuanced and there's a lot of gray out there.
right,
And if you go into the world thinking, okay, well, I don't necessarily think I have all the answers. I have an opinion and I have
right.
opinions. But if you just go into relationships and connections with people as choose to be curious, your day becomes way more interesting, a lot easier, and you tend to build relationships rather than break them apart.
100%. So on curious, and this is a shift to a little bit of fun. I'm a car guy. So galvanize, I immediately think of, oh, the Porsche 944 is galvanized. So
The
that's a
hot
good
dip
car.
into the bath of
Yeah,
yeah,
that car's
treat the
not going to
galvanized
rust.
steel. Yeah.
Right. And I had to look it up the meeting before this. And that actually, my meaning from the car world is actually secondary. The primary meaning is really what you do.
Yeah.
Have you encountered some fun like I have? Like people expect
Oh
that you're,
man, I've got stories for you, Chris.
yeah.
So I think the last one was a guy who wanted to bring a horse trough to our location to galvanize his horse trough. And
Wow.
when I said, "Well, we're not that kind of galvanizer," he goes, "What kind of galvanizer are you?" And I went into the definition, which is to spark and to move into action. And he said, "That's really weird." He goes, "That's not my idea of galvanizing," and he hung up on me. So we've gotten horse troughs, spiral staircases, fences, and it doesn't really speak well of my relationship building ability that I haven't built a connection with a galvanizing company to refer these leads to.
Oh,
But
that's a thought. Yeah.
that's on my to-do list for 2025.
Anyone listening, reach out
Yeah.
to Patrick. Got some leads for you.
Well, it just goes to show how literal people are. And when
Yeah.
they type in Galvanizing Group, we come up number one. And it just shows that a lot of people are moving fast
Yeah.
and they just pick up the phone and call. So it's always a moment of levity and probably get a couple of those a month now.
But yeah. And the meaning really is, at least the one I found was excite to take action, like
Yes.
motivate to take action. So it's one thing to read all the books and all the things and take it all in and meditate. It's another to like take the action. And a lot of people I think can be afraid. I've been in space earlier in my life where I'd be afraid to like, oh my gosh, what if I mess it up? You really can't
No,
this,
you
right?
can't. And especially now, this is like a golden opportunity because I think COVID has, and this sounds weird, but COVID has given us a gift. It has
Yeah.
given me and many people this greater appreciation when I'm face to face with others, how that has not always been the case. When you go to a convention or an association meeting now, there's still enthusiasm that didn't exist before COVID because people are seeing folks who they may never have met in the real world.
Right.
And because they're excited to be there, if you go up to someone and start an awkward conversation, It's okay. They're going to be
Yeah.
glad that you initiated the conversation, that you went up and started chatting with them. So I think there's an openness to when you're out in the world trying to
Yeah.
build connection to uh, for people to feel a little bit. People still feel awkward, and when a lot of people have written to us after reading this book saying, I COVID kind of got me to forget some of these things that I used to do, and it's good to know that I can still do those. It's not all about online only. It's about the blend. So I think this is a
100%.
great time to be building relationships.
For sure. And it's you said it so well. It's these opportunities where we are face to face and the blend of being online and everything else. It's almost like it's a treat. Like we don't take it maybe for granted like we used to. I know for me, I'd go to big conferences and I would want to go and hide because it got overwhelmed after a while and recharge. And now I'm like, oh, huh, I could meet with this person and this person and this person. I might go home in my
Yeah,
room later and hide. But when I'm at the conference, I'm more present in the moment with those
yeah.
activities.
Yeah, so you're like my co-author. So I co-wrote the book with my wife Ellen. We've been in our business together for over 20 years. She is a self-declared introvert. You can already tell what my true colors are. I'm definitely an extrovert. So she would be like you, Chris. She'd go to the conference and want to escape to her room. And a lot of people would say, well, she's not a great relationship builder. Well, she's in some ways she has an advantage over me, and that an introvert, this be interested and not interesting, that's usually something introverts can lean into much more because perhaps a little bit out of self-defense. They don't want to dominate the conversation because it's exhausting. So they
Hmm.
tend to be more analytical. They ask better questions. They listen more. They follow up better. So here's the great news about relationship building and connecting at conferences and out in the world is introverts actually have a natural advantage over extroverts in that your proclivity, I think, is to really hear out the other person. Whereas someone like myself can be so enthusiastic about what we're talking on, we sometimes forget to listen as much as we should.
Yeah. Yeah. So many gems, Patrick. And then we could talk for hours and hours, but I want to be respectful of your time and other people's time that are listening. But other than your book, which we'll have links to and things below, how would folks that are excited about this and want better relationships at work and better connections with their clients, what's the best way for folks to engage with you?
Really, if they just go to patrickgalvin.com, there's a link to all of our books, our online courses, and then there's a link back to our corporate website if they're interested in our coaching programs or online learning programs. But patrickgalvin.com is the best jumping off point.
Okay. And I know you've done larger enterprises. Is there anything too small, too big, or anything specific that you serve or don't serve, or is it really
Well,
anyone looking?
the great news is we can now work with individuals very effectively with the Daily Connector. And
Okay.
that's available on Amazon and print and Kindle. We have an audio version where there's a journal that will be available on Amazon in about a week where you could actually write down your thoughts. And we've packaged the journal with the audio, and that's accessible via patrickgalvin.com. So that's on the individual level. And if that's of interest and it has expansion possibilities in an enterprise, there's ways of scaling that up and talk about our coaching program and what have you, and speaking and the whole life. So now we actually have a way to go from this very small to our biggest client is a Fortune 50 company. So all
Amazing.
points in between.
Wow. And so needed. I mean, it's not until later in life, I think, that we realize that those relationships are the things that stick with you through decades and companies and everything else. It's so easy to miss, at least for me early in life, that's so important. And yeah, as you change things, as the world changes, as your life changes, that's the foundation and the framework that you'll have as long as you're around. And sometimes it's the least likely suspects that will come to help you. And when you're out of work, you're laid off or something else, it might not be your tier one contacts, it's your tier two that you've taken that effort and had that awkward time, or you treated a client the way they should be treated, which is rare.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's amazing how that will be there for you for such a long time. So
Yes, that then there's a lot of actually science and data backing up that those secondary connections, not your primaries, not the folks you went to high school with or were your best friends in college, but these people who were work colleagues that might have moved on from your company, that might have been clients, that those can be the real movers and shakers. And in our business, we've been around now for more than 20 years. I think I came up with about 70 to 80% of our business. If I keep asking, well, why did we do business with that one? Why? You do the five whys or the six or
yeah,
seven whys. It goes back to about five different people. And they're not people I would have picked out of the crowd as being, these are going to be the movers and shakers. And that story for us, is not a really remarkable one. I talk to a lot of professional service providers, and it's usually a handful that have had the most significant impact in terms of the business direction.
Amazing. Amazing. Patrick, it's so delightful having you on the show. I love what you do. It is so needed in the world, not just the business world, but everything there. You know, we lack strong leadership and strong relationships. And when those things are strong, so many things are better, and everything kind of lines up. So thank you so much for the work that you and your wife do in this space and how you serve. I'm curious, and I ask this of all my guests.
Sure.
What's one thing you're thankful or grateful for today?
I think the answer is going to be obvious in my case. You know, the relationships really. I was sharing with a friend yesterday that I feel like I'm in the wealth creation business, and the wealth that we help people create is the wealth of relationships. And when I think about my own life, I just went to a memorial service for my father, and you know, all the testimonials for his life had to do with how he encourage people to, you know, reach whatever it was going to make them their best self. And he certainly did that with me. And no one spoke about his material stuff. No one spoke about, you know, how well dressed he was, which he wasn't. They spoke about how he encouraged people, how he built relationships and connections. And that's real wealth. Relationships really are the key to the good life. And that truly is my measurement of wealth.
That's amazing and so true. Again, thank you, Patrick, so much for being on Leading the Way. Listeners, thank you for listening. And yes, while I would love a like, subscribe, and share for the algorithm, more importantly, share this with a friend. I'm sure you know a client, a friend, a colleague that would, one, love this book. What a great gift coming around the first of the year, right? I'm excited to go get my copy. But also, this is so relevant and what's going on in the business world, and the deeper and the stronger and the more meaningful relationships you can have, the more successful you're going to be. And you said it so well, that wealth, you know, is 10, 100, a million times, a platinum times the monetary stuff. And so important. So thanks so much for what you do, Patrick. Thank you, listeners, for being on, and keep leading the way.
Thank you for listening to Leading the Way podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss other great episodes like this one. And if you're ready for more in your workplace, be sure to go to aintent.com. You'll find lots of free tools, assessments, and ways to engage directly with us to get your own epic results. We'll see you there.